The city exhaled steam from its metal grates. Streetlights painted the wet pavement in strokes of orange and white. Kai's boots hit the concrete, each step a heavy beat after a long day. The weight of his work bag felt like a small animal clinging to his back, a reminder of the hours spent building things for other people, using his hands to bring someone else's vision to life. His muscles ached a familiar, dull ache. His mind was tired, a low hum of exhaustion buzzing behind his eyes. But his eyes, they held something else, a flicker, a small, stubborn fire that the city's tired breath couldn't blow out. It was hope. He climbed the 3 flights of stairs to his apartment, the building groaning with each step, as if it were as tired as he was. The key turned in the lock, a satisfying click that meant he was home. He dropped his bag by the door, the thud echoing in the quiet space. The apartment wasn't big. It was just a room, really. A place to sleep, a place to eat, and a place to build. His own things were everywhere. Unfinished projects, sketches taped to the wall, tools laid out in perfect order. This was his sanctuary, the place where the day's fatigue was supposed to die. But for Kai, this was where the real work began. He didn't flop onto the couch. He didn't turn on the TV to let the noise wash over him. Instead, he stood in the center of the room and just breathed. In, out. He let the day fall off his shoulders piece by piece, the demanding boss, the long commute, the feeling of being just another face in the crowd. He shed it all like a heavy coat. What was left was just him. Kai, a builder, a creator, a dreamer in a city full of them. He knew the night was young, and it was his. The grind for them was over. The grind for him was just starting. His reflection stared back at him from the dark screen of his monitor. Brown skin, a constellation of small scars on his knuckles from work, and locks that fell past his shoulders. He saw the tiredness there, plain as day. But he also saw the promise he made to himself every single night. The promise to keep going, to keep building. Not for a paycheck, not for a boss, but for the person he knew he could become. He stretched his arms high above his head, his fingers reaching for the ceiling, and a small smile touched his lips. It was time to create. The first stop was the iron. The weights in the corner of his room weren't for show. They were his partners in a silent dance of strength and strain. He slipped on his headphones and the world outside the beat disappeared. It was just him and the cold, heavy steel. Each lift was a push against more than just gravity. It was a push against doubt, a push against the voice that whispered he wasn't strong enough. He sweat. He grunted. The burn in his muscles was a fire being stoked, a reminder that power had to be forged, not just wished for. No one was there to spot him. No one was there to cheer him on, but he pushed anyway, for himself. Next came the glow of the screen. He sat at his desk, the keyboard clicking like a rapid heartbeat in the quiet room. He was editing, splicing together clips, layering sounds, adjusting colors. He was telling stories without words, building worlds with pixels and light. His videos were his voice, a way to show the world how he saw things. He poured hours into a 30-second clip that maybe 10 people would see. It didn't matter. The act of making it, of getting it just right, was the point. It was an exercise in patience, in focus. He was building his craft, brick by digital brick, in the lonely hours of the night. After the editing, he'd switch gears. The controller felt natural in his hands. Gaming wasn't just an escape, it was training. His thumbs danced across the buttons, his eyes tracking every movement on the screen. He was learning patterns, predicting moves, sharpening his reflexes until they were like razors. Each victory, no matter how small, was a jolt of accomplishment. Each loss was a lesson. In these digital arenas, he could be a hero, a strategist, a champion. He was honing his mind, making it quicker, more agile, more prepared for the battles that happened away from the screen. This was his cycle: lift, edit, play, repeat. Every night, a ritual of self-improvement performed in solitude. He was planting seeds in the dark, watering them with sweat and effort, with no guarantee that anything would ever grow. The world outside slept, unaware of the worlds he was building, the strength he was gathering. He was his own coach, his own audience, his own harshest critic. He pushed on, fueled by the quiet belief that all this work, all this unseen hustle, had to lead somewhere. He just didn't know where yet. One night, it happened. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a flash of light. It was quiet. A hum. He was in the middle of a push-up, his body trembling with effort when he felt it. A strange warmth bloomed in his chest, spreading through him like ink in water. It wasn't the usual burn of a workout. This was different. It was a deep, thrumming energy, a current that seemed to connect every muscle, every cell. He pushed up from the floor, but it felt effortless. His body, which had been heavy with fatigue moments before, suddenly felt light, charged, and humming with a strange new vitality. He stood up looking at his hands. They seemed the same, brown skin, calloused fingers, but they felt different. He could feel the blood pulsing in his fingertips, a steady, powerful rhythm. He walked to the mirror and looked into his own eyes. The flicker of hope was still there, but now it was a roaring flame. His mind, usually a jumble of thoughts about edits and deadlines and the day's frustrations, was suddenly crystal clear. It was like a foggy window had been wiped clean. The world felt sharper, the colors in his room more vibrant, the low hum of the city outside more distinct. A wave of calm washed over him. The constant background noise of anxiety and self-doubt was gone. In its place was a profound sense of focus, a quiet confidence that settled deep in his bones. He felt whole. The parts of him that always felt like they were fighting each other, the tired worker, the hopeful artist, the disciplined athlete, were suddenly in perfect harmony. They were all just him, and he was strong. Not just physically strong, but mentally unbreakable. He felt like he could see things others couldn't, understand connections that were invisible before. He didn't understand what was happening, not really. There was no manual for this, no guide to unlocking a power you never knew you had. But he wasn't scared. He felt ready. For what, he wasn't sure. But the feeling was undeniable. All those nights of pushing, of building, of creating in the dark. It wasn't for nothing. It was like he had been filling a reservoir inside himself, drop by drop, and tonight it had finally overflowed. He was still Kai, but he was also something more, something new, something powerful. He walked outside. The night air, usually thick and heavy, felt electric on his skin. He could feel the city's energy not as noise, but as a current flowing through the pavement, up his legs and into his core. The chaotic symphony of sirens, music, and distant arguments was no longer just noise. It was information. He could pick out individual sounds, trace them to their source. He felt connected to everything, a part of the city's living, breathing network. He was no longer just a person walking through the city. He was a part of its pulse, and it was a part of his. His movements changed. The next day, at work, lifting heavy materials felt like lifting pillows. His hands moved with a new precision, his mind seeing the finished product 3 steps ahead of everyone else. At home, his workout was no longer a struggle. It was an expression of power. He moved with a liquid grace, his body a perfectly tuned instrument. When he sat down to edit, his fingers flew across the keyboard. Ideas came to him in a flash, fully formed. The stories he wanted to tell flowed out of him, clear and compelling. He was creating faster, better, more confidently than ever before. The world hadn't changed. His apartment was the same size. His paycheck was the same. The people on the street still rushed past him without a second glance. On the outside, nothing was different. But on the inside, everything was. He carried himself with a new stillness, a quiet self-assurance that didn't need anyone else's approval. The hustle was no longer a desperate struggle. It was a joyful act of creation. He knew his own value now. He knew the power he held. It was a secret he kept, a silent energy humming just beneath his skin. He stood on his rooftop, the sun rising and painting the sky in fiery colors. He looked down at the waking city, at the millions of people starting their day, chasing their own dreams, fighting their own battles. They didn't know him. They didn't see him. Not yet. He held up his phone, switched the camera to face him, and hit record. He looked directly into the lens, his eyes holding the fire of 1,000 nights of work and 1 moment of awakening. A small, confident smile played on his lips. "You don't know me yet," he said, his voice calm and steady. "But you will. I'm ready."